This time we can speak about small one. But St. Francis de Sales is telling us that actually small temptations are also very important to fight because they are frequent, constant, and this is our daily life, when maybe great temptations don't happen very often. Of course, great temptations are dangerous because it's danger of death, and we, of course, have to fight them with a lot of courage, a lot of determination to avoid to die. And great temptations are, of course, they surpass the small one in danger, in quality, they are more dangerous, but the small ones surpass the great temptation in number. And now the victory against small temptations can be actually comparable to the victory on great temptations, because it's much more difficult to be always fighting and always winning, even in these small temptations. And St. Francis is telling us maybe lions or wolves or bears or tigers are more dangerous than flies or mosquitoes, but actually they don't cause us much harm. They don't exercise our patience so much because we never meet them somehow, or rarely. And he says it's easy to refrain from murder. I hope you can control yourself not to kill someone. It's easy to refrain from murder, but it is difficult to avoid those little outbursts of anger, whereof the occasions present themselves every moment. It is easy for a man or a woman to refrain from adultery, but it is not easy to refrain from amorous glances, from giving or receiving love, from seeking little favors, from saying and receiving words of flattery. It is easy to admit of no revolt to the husband or to the wife, as far as the body is concerned, but it is not easy to do the same in regard to the heart. Very easy not to defile the marriage bed, but very difficult to refrain from everything that may injure us to married love. Easy not to steal the good of other people, but difficult to refrain from envy and covetousness. Easy not to bear false witness in a court of law, but difficult never to lie in conversation. Easy never to get drunk, but difficult always to be temperate. Easy never to desire the death of someone, but difficult never to wish ill to him. Easy never to defame him, but difficult never to despise him. What St. Francis is saying is we have many good fights to lead and to win in these small temptations. And actually, our holiness is made of these victories. Because to get out of mortal sin is just the beginning of spiritual life. It's just the first step. We still have so many mountains to climb, and these mountains are the ones we have described. These very little temptations, these small temptations, but if we can conquer them, this is where we have a lot of battles and fights to conquer these small temptations. In a word, these little temptations to anger, suspicion, jealousy, envy, flirtation, vanity, frivolity, duplicity, affectation, artifice, impure thoughts, continually exercise those very persons who are most devout and resolute. And therefore, we must prepare ourselves for this combat with great care and diligence. And rest assured that for every victory which we gain over these little enemies, a precious stone will be set in the crown of glory, which God is preparing for us in heaven. Let us not think that we are perfect because we are not falling in a mortal sin. We have much more to do. We have much more perfection to attain than to fight mortal sin. We have so many small enemies, so many flies, so many mosquitoes that are going around, and we have to fight all of them and conquer them. But it's maybe important for us to identify, to do an examination of conscience and identify these dangers for us. What is actually dangerous? What is actually a weakness? And it's good also to analyze the passion of our heart. Is our heart inclined in some obsession, some passion? Are we free from all kind of attachment? Are we really at peace in our heart? Or do we have this attachment for something that is not really well balanced? It's important for us to fight these small temptations even. Now, we want to see with Saint Francis what will be the remedies against small temptations. How do we fight them? And Saint Francis says something interesting about it. Because these small temptations to vanity, suspicion, peevishness, jealousy, envy, flirtation, and such like, which like flies and midges hover before our eyes and sometimes sting us on the cheek, sometimes on the nose, because it is impossible to be altogether free from their importunity. He is saying that we cannot avoid these temptations. There is no way we can be at peace. Many times people are asking, Father, how to avoid these temptations. I am distracted in my prayers. I have temptations of impurity, bad desire. I have anger. I am feeling bitter toward people who have been bad with me. So many things like that. We cannot avoid them. They are there. They are like flies, and you cannot tell them not to come, There is no way you can explain a fly not to disturb you. They are just coming. And don't think it's a sin to be tempted. Don't think it's abnormal. It is normal to have these temptations. Now, what should we do? St. Francis is telling us that the best way of resisting this temptation is not to allow ourselves to be worried by them. Maybe you will be surprised. Maybe you will say, you have really to fight them, you have to concentrate, you have to fight back. And he's telling us, no, don't be worried. Don't concentrate on them. Don't look at them. Don't spend your time to concentrate on them. Actually, they cannot hurt you as long as you are firmly resolved to serve God. A temptation is just an opportunity to show our love to God. A temptation is somehow good because it's an opportunity for us to show a lot of love to God. They are annoying, they are unpleasant, they are harassing us, but as long as we don't love them, we are free from offending God, and actually it's an opportunity to grow in the love of God. And now the way to fight these small temptations, he says, despise them. Despise. Don't pay attention to them. Despise these little attacks. And do not so much as think of what they suggest, but let them buzz about your ears as much as they like. You cannot really chase them. And when they are about to sting you, and you see them settling on your heart, do nothing more than quite quietly drive them away, not fighting against them, nor answering them, but performing acts contrary to them, whatever they may be, and especially acts of the love of God. It's not time for panic. It's not time for getting agitated. These things are not harming you if you don't love them, accept them. But he will tell you, don't become agitated, don't become anxious, don't become in trouble, or don't lose your peace, don't become annoyed, don't think that you are a very big sinner because all these things, but just perform an act contrary to them. you will imagine that you are tempted about vanity, to look at yourself in the mirror and to appreciate how you are. It's a temptation of vanity. It's a small temptation. The best is not to think about this temptation, to fight it. The best is maybe just to look at an image of Jesus and look at Jesus crucified, to look at the holy face of the shroud, and to think what is important, to have a pretty face or to have a good heart. Yeah. And now you start even despising what is only pretty and not good, deeply. You know. And you contemplate the holy face, and he's teaching you the love of God that was burning in the heart of Jesus. And this is where you should concentrate your affection at this moment. Or you are tempted to be bitter because someone has been harming you. You have this temptation in your heart to be bitter, to wish for even revenge, or to wish that something bad can happen to this person. Don't think about it to fight it, because the more you do that, the more you concentrate on that, actually. It's better at this moment, again, to look at your crucifix, to take your rosary in your hand, and to think that Jesus died for you, sinner. He died for you when you were an enemy of Jesus. And Jesus said, that is easy to love your friends. For me, I tell you, love your enemies, forgive them, bless them. Yeah. This is how we get calmed, how we get in peace. It's when we look at Jesus. Let us look at Jesus. He is our solution. He is our Savior. He is the one who will deliver us from this temptation, but not panic, not become anxious, not lose hope or confidence or despair. You know. And the temptation will not stay if you contemplate Jesus, you know, or you meditate about the Blessed Virgin Mary. The temptation will disappear. He said, don't dispute with it. Don't argue. Don't try to see how acceptable it is and how not acceptable it is, and up to where you could still accept it and up to where you could not. Don't argue. Just look at Jesus. After having performed an act of the contrary virtue, you will turn your heart simply towards Jesus Christ crucified. And by an act of love of Him, you will kiss His sacred feet. And now he's saying something more general, because it's actually what he told us for the great temptations. You know, if a big temptation is persisting, you have no other option than to embrace your crucifix, to embrace Jesus, and to just look at Him, Don't look at the temptation, just look at Jesus, and He is your only Savior. And he says this is the best way to overcome temptation, the enemy, both in small and great temptations. For the love of God, containing in itself all the perfections of all the virtues, and more excellently than the virtues themselves, is also a sovereign remedy against all vices. An act of love of God contains the perfection of everything else, because we say that charity is the form of all other virtues. Charity is ordaining all our habits, our virtues, to God Himself. And now when we just do an act of charity, when we grow in the direct love of Jesus, we fight any kind of temptation altogether. Because charity is the summit of the mountain. If you hold the top, you hold everything. And also, it's a remedy against all these temptations, because the devil is absolutely afraid of an act of charity. What he wants is you to love what is low, to love, to sin, to be attracted by what is lower than you, to fall. But if anytime he is tempting you, you do an act of humility and you do a greater act of charity, he is just losing his time with you, because he is just making you more perfect. He's just making you loving God more and more. And the more he multiplies the temptations, the more you grow in holiness. And actually, he will run away himself, because he doesn't like to be defeated, and he doesn't want to give you more opportunities to grow in perfection. And this is what Saint Francis is saying. Moreover, so terrifying to the evil spirits that when he sees that these temptations stir us up to the divine love, he ceases to trouble us with them. And this is always the way to fight temptation. To do an act of humility, because the devil is hating humility, and to do an act of charity, to grow in the love of Jesus, because that is totally opposed now to his plan. Actually, if you do that, you are not obliged to examine every temptation, or to enter in consideration of what is happening, or what you feel, or I don't know. There is no need to be troubled. You just need only to do one thing, is to turn calmly to Jesus, do an act of love of Jesus, kiss your crucifix, kiss the cross of your rosary, hold it in your hand, do an act of love, and it will pass. And someone is looking like a fool who is trying to fight all the flies around him, You will look like a very funny man trying to beat the air around you to chase all these flies. And it's not wise to do like that. You just look a bit stupid if you spend your life beating the flies around you. You look like a mad person, in the street, agitated, fighting the flies. It's not the way to do. The way to do is to despise them. If they are about to bite you, is to chase them calmly, but mainly to focus on an act of love of Jesus. Now we have another chapter where St. Francis wants to help us to strengthen our hearts against temptations. This is where he is telling us to consider from time to time what passions are predominant in your soul. A passion is a movement of our sensitivity. According to the philosopher, we have like 11 passions. It can be hatred, can be love, it can be joy or sadness, it can be fear, or on the opposite, too much audacity. It can be anger. These passions, these passions are the movement of our sensitivity. By themselves, they are not bad, or they are not wrong, or they are not good by themselves. It's only according to the circumstances and the judgment of our reason. It is good to love your children. It is not good to love the wife of someone else. It depends on the circumstances. It is good to rejoice from the victory of a man of good. It is bad to rejoice because your enemy has broken his leg. The circumstances are what make a patient good or bad, according to them. But it's good for us to know our passions, to know the movement of our heart. What are the predominant passions we have in our heart? It can be love. We can be inclined to always think about someone, to be too busy thinking about a person. It can be anger. We can be always an angry person, always ready to pick a fight. You know, you have this anger staying in your heart full time. It can be hatred, this bitterness, this hatred that is there against someone who has harmed you. It can be fear. So many people are dominated by fear. They are always fearing something. They become scrupulous. They fear too much. All these passions are there, and it's okay. It's just a feeling. To feel angry is not a sin. You just feel anger. But now to act according to this anger can be good or bad according to the situation. It's not always bad to be angry. If you are angry to fight a thief, it's a good anger. You need this anger to fight the thief, actually. And the anger will help you to do something good, to fight a thief. But if you are angry at someone who is innocent, has done nothing wrong, and now you speak badly to this person, it is a sin. It means it's good to observe and to know the predominant passions of our heart. And all of us, we have a predominant passion. maybe we are attracted always by being too joyful, you know. Party after party, friends, drinking, okay? We have that. We are always attracted by this kind of desires. Or maybe we are too much a melancholic person, always sad, always bringing a sadness around you. And that is not good. Because let us know who we are. Let us sometimes observe our heart and know what is moving us. What is this activity inside? Where are we inclined to be, to go, to do, to dream, to want? Yeah. Because these passions will lead us to sin, of course. They will call for their own satisfaction. And if we discover that we have always too much anger in us, of course we will sin one day this way. If you let a wrong love grow in your heart, it will lead you to sin, of course. Consider from time to time what passions are predominant in your soul. And when you have discovered them, adopt a manner of life which is altogether contrary to them, in thoughts, in words, and in deeds. For example, if you find yourself inclined to vanity, think often of the misery of this human life. Consider how troublesome these vanities will be to the conscience at the hour of death. How unworthy they are of a generous heart. That they are only the toys and amusement of little children, and such like things. Now, try to develop the opposite consideration. Try to convince yourself. Imagine you are tempted to be angry. Try to convince yourself how stupid it is to speak like that, how foolish you are not to be able to control yourself, how much damage you can cause because of your anger. Just try to convince yourself intellectually by your meditation, your reflection, to counter attack, to build a conviction that is opposite to your inclination. Because if you want to change, if you want to fight, you need to be convicted. You need to be very, very sure, very convinced about what you want to change. Because if you don't have this resolution, if you don't have this conviction, it's not really important, you will never change it. You will never fight it. And you will even continue to do that and increase. This is why it is good for us to meditate about our dominant passion in order to have this, to be convinced intellectually. And now he's even given a second way, not only to have this thought about it, but even to speak frequently against this default you have. Because the more you speak in public against this default, somehow the more you bind yourself not to do it, okay? Because people are the witnesses of what you say. Because the more you speak about something, the more you even convince yourself that you should not do these kind of things. And even he's saying, often speak against maybe vanity or anger or impurity or flirtation, or often speak against that. And even at the beginning, maybe you can feel that it's not very natural. You force yourself. It's not flowing. Of course it's not flowing, because this is your problem. But still, keep speaking against it. Cease not to despise it. For by this means you will commit yourself even in honor, because people are the witnesses of what you say, to the opposite side. And by dint of speaking against a thing, we come to hate it. Even though in the beginning we had an affection to it. It is something that for me is very important about people who are tempted with bad pictures, bad videos, that are so horrible, so offending to God. The remedy for that is first of all to increase the intellectual conviction, to be totally convinced that it's something that is absolutely horrible, and we really don't want these kind of things. Because if there is not this clarity, of course it will never stop. But after that, the next step is to hate it. To hate it with all your heart. And how do you hate it? Speaking badly against it, okay? Committing yourself against these kind of things, even publicly. And trying to explain to other people how horrible it is to do that. Because the more you do that, the more you forge in your heart an opposition to it. And the more you preach against it, the more you convince yourself against it. And the more you hate it yourself. Because if there is no hate, there is no solution, you know. The kingdom of God belongs to violent people. If we are not violent, we will not get it. And to stop these kind of addictions, you need this violence. You need to want it. You need to fight it. You need to be very convinced. And you need this violence and this hatred. This is what he is telling us. Let us create this hatred in us by speaking against the foolishness of these people who are doing what we are tempted to do. And doing that, we create the good disposition in our hearts. If you are tempted about vanity, do works that are mean and lowly as often as you can. We started in thought, we want to words to speak against what actually we feel, against our temptation, to commit ourselves in words. And now we go for actions. You are tempted against vanity, do works that are mean and lowly as often as you can. You think you are better than anyone else? Start doing some job that are humble job. And even you do it reluctantly, it means you are not so happy to do that. It doesn't matter. For by this means you will accustom yourself to humility and will weaken your vanity in such sort that temptation comes, your inclination will be unable to favor it so much, and you will have more strength to fight against it. Is to do the opposite. To do the opposite of what you feel. And there is no progress without committing ourselves in action. Because we have the grace of God, but we need to practice. And action is now practice. But it's good to identify. He's giving another example. You are inclined to pleasure. To pleasure, maybe pleasure of possessing more things, covetousness. Often think of the folly of this sin, which make us the slaves of what was created only to serve us. Reflect that at death we shall have to part with all our possessions and leave them in the hands of someone who may squander them, or to whom they may be a source of ruin and damnation. And such like stars. Speak much against covetousness. Praise contempt of the world. Force yourself often to give alms and do works of charity, and something to let sleep opportunities sometimes to let sleep opportunities of gain. You are attracted by possessing more, by to be a bit avaricious, to be attached too much to make good money, you are very good at business. Force yourself sometimes to miss an opportunity of business, to give more alms, to give more to the poor, to do more works of charity, because this is actually against this inclination of your heart. If you are inclined to give or receive love, it means maybe you are tempted of flirtation, or you need someone to be nice with you, to have kind words, and you look too much for that. Often think how dangerous it is, both to yourself and to other people. How unworthy a thing it is to profane the noblest affection of the soul, and to use it merely for the sake of diversion. How well it deserves the accusation of extreme frivolity of spirit. often speak and pray in praise of purity and simplicity of heart. And as often as you can, set your actions to your words, avoiding what savours of affectation and flirtation. You are tempted to call this person, to look for this person. This is where you incline to go, to be. Just do the opposite. Refrain yourself. Stay far. Go and visit the Blessed Sacrament. Kiss your crucifix. Tell Jesus that actually He is your only love. And remember that there is no need of, this is what we say in the last chapter, how we fight this kind of temptation, not becoming anxious or panicking or despair but just loving Jesus. And every time you will have maybe this temptation to be attracted by some human being in a way that is not good, of course, you will do an act of love for Jesus. And you will of course resist to send this message or to pass this call or to visit this person. But you can see how every temptation can be for us an opportunity to do a greater love of God. To love God more, to multiply. And the more you have temptation, the more you have an opportunity to multiply your acts of love. And how these acts of love are the universal remedy against all kinds of temptations, because actually there is only two love, as St. Augustine says. One love of God that makes people despise everything else, and the love of the world that makes us despise God. And between these two loves, we have to choose. And when we are tempted by the world, one of these passions, the way to strengthen our hearts is to strengthen this other love, that is the love of God. And when we strengthen the love of God, we fight all the passions all together. We fight all the temptations all together. This is why it is a universal remedy, is to grow in the love of Jesus. Because for us, God is Jesus, you know. Jesus is our visible God. We can look at Him in our crucifix, look at Him on the holy face of the shroud. And now a last advice. Finally, in time of peace, when you are not agitated or tempted, when you have no temptation, make many acts of the contrary virtue of your dominant passion, and should no occasions for such acts present themselves, seek to meet with them, for by this means you will strengthen your heart against future temptations. You are an angry person, and you want to strengthen your character against that. You can try to sometime meet occasions of act of patience. You can say, okay, let me go and speak with this person I don't like. I have 10 minutes, I can visit this person. I'm sure I will have 10 minutes of virtue, you know, and you go ready for it. Let me practice patience for 10 minutes with this person. Yeah. You can seek to meet this occasion of practicing the virtue. And because you do it willingly, you know what you are doing. You are not doing something impossible. You are not exposing yourself to a near occasion of mortal sin, of course. It's not what Saint Francis is saying. He is not telling you to meet a near occasion of mortal sin. He is telling you to look for an opportunity to practice a virtue. You can train a child like that. Tell him, okay, you put a sweet here, and you tell him, you don't eat, okay? And you stay 30 minutes with the sweet here. And you strengthen the virtue, of course. Because the temptation is there. It's not a mortal sin, okay? It's just maybe a temptation for a venial sin of gluttony. But the child can strengthen his capacity to resist a small temptation for 30 minutes. And now he has strengthened himself. And now he is preparing his heart to resist bigger temptations, because he has been fighting in small things, and he has been found faithful because it was not too difficult, but he has trained himself for a more difficult fight. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the